What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the BZ Music Podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Seif.
And I'm your co-host, Ben Weise.
And we are excited to be doing this episode. Fun fact, we were trying to shoot this a couple days ago, and the internet decided to crap out all over New Jersey, because as if this situation that we're all in right now isn't shit enough, what's one more roadblock, you know?
Exactly. Technology is just always so reliable all of the time. Yeah, I'm sure everyone can agree with that.
So what have you been up to, dude?
Nothing much. Really, nothing. Not really nothing much, but just like kind of the same stuff I've been doing. I actually, as we tried to talk about this the first time we tried to do this, but I put out a couple new cool videos. Cool meaning I think it's cool. Videos on YouTube. The first of which is actually a guitar cover of the song "Don't Start Now" by Dua Lipa.
Yeah,
and it's and basically what I've done is I've replaced the vocals with just me playing guitar over it and playing the melodies and doing a little, attempted shreddy stuff. And then the other one was a guitar duet between myself and my friend Cotter, who's I know from like school and stuff. We did a cover of this just like guitar duet, like sight reading piece called Harlem Avenue, and I put that out a couple days ago. So that's both those videos. I'm kind of happy with how they turned out. I'm looking forward to making some more of those type of videos, like whether it be collabs with other guys on like duets or covers of pop songs. Like I'm kind of just keeping my options open at this point. What about you, man?
So for a Berkeley assignment, we had a composition that we had to work on, and so I did a Skrillex meets Angel Vivaldi sort of shred guitar EDM kind of collab tune, which I'm very proud of. It came out really well. Just bass mix done. So what we're gonna do in a second is we'll grab our guest for today, who very, very excited to have her on, and we'll play through some original stuff that we've been working on, and we'll kind of do that as our segment this week. Before we do that, I did manage to get a very exciting new addition to the family yesterday.
Oh!
I went back,
show the audience,
headless, and I got a Kiesel Vader 6-string. Look at that ass, though,
Man. Oh.
So, mint green finish. It's got bare knuckle pickups in it right now. It's a zebra wood fretboard, maple neck. It's an alder something back with a matching zebra wood control cavity, and then I've got matching knobs coming in the week. But this thing, man, I strung it up and I've tuned it once in the last 24 hours. This thing just is so rock solid. It's so light too, and it just sits there. So like last night I was watching TV, and because it's small, right, it can just kind of fit in bed, just running scales and stuff, all day. I probably put like 5.5 hours on this thing since I got it about this time last night.
Man, that's crazy. That's such a sweet guitar.
It's the perfect travel thing because you can bring it in the tour van too, and you can just sit there and play in the passenger seat, and your headstock doesn't hit the guy who's driving. So what I would do before lessons is I'd wait and I'd play in the driver's seat, and it doesn't hit the window or anything. It's just so easy to travel and teach with, and it's got the 5-way switch, so you can get your split coil tones as well. It's a no-brainer, and the thing weighs like 6 pounds.
Wow. But it costs a lot more than it weighs, though.
Absolutely. All the Kiesel stuff is, made to order. The base price is $11.99, and then depending on what options you want, it goes up for there. So for a headless guitar, it's the cheapest American model that you can get at a base price. Most people tend to spec their builds around $1,600 to about $2,000 or so. because I tried to see
bad at all.
if I wanted to make one, and my specs came out to like 15 and a half or so. But it's a custom-ish, guitar. You pick the specs on it. So yeah, that's close to the one that I used to have, which is why I got it. So excited to be playing it again. For sure. Before
Yeah.
we bring our guest on, I saw a question earlier, and I thought maybe you and I could just kind of spitball this in 30 seconds or less.
Let's do it.
It was oh, AI generated lyrics. So I don't know if you've seen these videos of like it's like I fed an AI machine, ACDC lyrics, and here's what it came up with, or I sent PDFs of the Titanic to a bot and had it write a musical about it or whatever. So I was watching a video today, and it was Ola England, and he saw the ACDC generated lyrics. So I can play a little bit of it later if you want to. But what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and music in 30 seconds or less?
That is admittedly not something that I have looked into that much, but personally, when I think music, I think of things that were created by actual living people, living beings. So I feel like that is, I don't know, unless you're doing like like EDM style, or like inputting music into a computer. That might be, I don't know if that's something along the same lines, but that would be the only exception. But aside from that, I generally would not rely on technology to create the music for you. I feel like the best music is, this might sound cliche, but the best music I feel is created by living people with actual emotions and feelings and just experiences, and that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, man. So where I stand with it is, I agree. There's a lot of people who are using loops and samples and stuff. That's fine. You can think about it how so many records these days are either completely sample replaced or just sample reinforced. Which it's one thing to have a little bit of reinforcement just to get the sound you're looking for a bit better, right? If you use the tools the way they're meant to be, fine. The problem I have is when it's on a professional release and they're trying to pass it off as something that was done by a human or someone in the band, and it clearly wasn't. So it's a little different from using drum samples for demos and in-home recordings like I do. But I think we're on the same page there, because even though what I used to do was just write everything out in like Guitar Pro or Tux Guitar or Sibelius or whatever, and then export it into Logic, as soon as I got my MIDI keyboards again back here, I kicked my ass a couple of times, and I was like, damn it, just learn how to play the parts on, as a piano part. And it adds a little bit more human to it. Of course, you can go back and quantize it and stuff later, but having a little bit more of a human element is fine. If you watch the video, though, I think it's clear that there's not going to be any sort of AI lyric writing anytime soon, because the lyrics don't make any sense, but it is damn funny. So basically it fed it a bunch of AC/DC songs, and the song title was called Great Balls, was the name of it. And it's so good. It is so great. And speaking of
I have
great,
to watch it.
it's great. Speaking of, our guest is ready for today. So Ben, why don't you give a little introduction before we let her in?
Well, first off, I'd like to preface it by saying this is our first guest who is not a guitarist. So
yeah,
this is proof that we know people who don't play our instrument. and so our guest today is a really good friend of mine. She's actually our first female guest on this podcast, another first. So she is a fantastic drummer and percussionist. She's actually for anyone listening who might be familiar, She is the drummer for a little band called Tula Vera, who's a pretty popular band around the New Jersey area. They've done a handful of tours. They have an album out on Spotify and all streaming platforms, and they also just released 2 new singles. The first of which is called "Gone with the Leaves," and the second of which is called "The First Thing," which are both up on all streaming platforms right now. So whenever she's ready to come on, I would gladly introduce everyone to Miss Margaret Marino.
There she is, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
Hello! Oh my goodness! Yes, finally, we are here. We are here.
Woo! Did it.
How's it going, Margaret?
Good. Went for a nice run today. Cleaned up the drum room, cleaned up the drum rug, used a vacuum, and polished her a little bit. So I'm a happy girl.
Can you get your camera to turn at all? You're sideways to us. There we go.
There she is.
Wonderful.
Cool. So after last week's mishap, it is so glad to finally have you on the show. Of course, we were just about to get started last week, and everyone's decided to crap out, and it was just a huge clusterfuck.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So
don't blame. Just blame.
It's all
the internet gods.
Again, thank you for taking time to reschedule. It's great to have you on. What have you been up to lately since the whole COVID thing kind of took over?
So when it first started, I was really going into practicing drumming. I was doing maybe like anywhere from 3 on a light day to like 5 or 6 hours of practice, and each week each week or one to 2 weeks I would learn a new groove of something I liked or wrote an exercise, and a lot of that you see on my Instagram. Unfortunately, I do have an injury in my arm that was caused a couple of years ago from drumming and overuse, and this is my weaker side. So one thing led to another, and unfortunately I ended up getting some nerve damage. It's been flaring up. However, I've been running and lifting to try to alleviate that. Mm-hmm. And once this is over, I'll be going to physical therapy. So right now I've had to keep it pretty light on the practicing, but as long as I can, keep doing it in the future, that's all that matters. A small break now doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, definitely. I hear you. Cool. So we're going to start the show today by sharing some original music that all of us have out. So we got a song from a cover that Ben did. We have a song that I wrote, and you can take your pick of whichever Tula Vera song you'd like us to play.
Oh, wow. You know what? I will do the very last single we just released last week, which is called "The First Thing."
All right. I'm going to pull that up.
My favorite.
Oh, I'm so glad you like it. That was recorded on that kit. The last single we did, "Gone with the Leaves," was my Ludwig accent custom as well. It sings. It really does.
It does.
That's awesome.
It's beautiful.
We're definitely gonna talk gear, later on. But so, ladies and gentlemen, this is "The First Thing" from Tula Vera. Tell me if you guys can hear that. Okay.
Oh yeah, there it is. I hear it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the first thing by Tula Vera. Give it up for Miss Margaret Marino on the drum. Woo!
Oh, thank you. I love that one. I love that one. It's so freeing to play. I play it a little bit differently every time.
It drives. It just drives the whole time. It's so solid. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the band?
So I met Dylan and Claire. Those are the two guitarists, and they both sang. You heard Dylan, and Claire has a lot of songs as well. We all met at the School of Rock in Montclair. I knew Claire back when they were in 6th grade and I was in 8th grade. So we've actually been kind of not together, but we've been playing music together for quite some time.
Right.
We were in like a Led Zeppelin tribute show together, which is, you know, so much of where our music is based off of, and other people from that era. So I met Dylan 2 years later when he and I were both sophomores in high school. We were both still going to the School of Rock, and we're based out of Montclair, so this is all very local. And I was maybe 15, probably waiting to get picked up after a drum lesson, and I hear someone that is playing a Zeppelin riff. I couldn't even tell you what song it was, but I heard someone playing it really well, and I was like, oh, who's playing that? I need to go find out. So I opened the doors to, I think it was the Red Room, which is in the lobby, and I see this kid there with like a Jimi Hendrix shirt on, and he's just kind of fiddling around, and I hopped on drums and we just kind of started playing. It must have been a Zeppelin song if I had to guess, and we started talking about music, jamming, and we exchanged numbers, and here we are all these years later. Now we're making music together. We're on our second album together.
That's awesome.
And Joe, the bassist, that was Dylan's by happenstance roommate in William Patterson freshman year. And he actually didn't play the bass. He's a drummer and a tuba player. And Dylan was like, we need a bassist. Let me teach you. And he was like, I don't know. I've never played the bass. And Dylan was like, no. What's the combination of tuba and drums? Bass. You can play bass. And our first show with him was in New Brunswick. And oh my God, Joe can attest to this. It wasn't the best. You know, Joe had been playing bass for maybe a month. He did his best. He did okay. Joe's amazing now, though. that's what matters.
You didn't let him bring the tuba out just in case? You know, you could have just put it on tuba.
You know what? That would be great. Claire's father actually plays trombone, so you know maybe hear a little of that too. Get him up there.
A little trombone action in there.
Yeah.
That's so cool. All right, so next on the list, we have a little guitar cover by a little Mr. Ben Weise, co-host of the BZ Music podcast. Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about... Yeah, not me. I'm not... You're Ben. Why don't you tell us how this whole idea kind of came to fruition? Because you and I have been talking the past couple weeks about, you know, what we've been working on, what we've been recording. What made you take a, you know, top 40 radio hit and want to just shred over it like... you know, the way you did?
Well, I think a lot of it, you know, I mean, Zach, I'm sure you and I are on the same page about this, but I follow a lot of kind of musical YouTubers on
too many to count
on YouTube. Too many, you know, just to rattle off a few guys like Stevie T, Jared Dines.
I love Stevie T. Oh my God!
Who doesn't love Stevie T?
Adam Neely, Rick Beato, Rhett Shull.
Yeah, those guys. And a lot of those guys kind of do some, not all of them, but some of them do similar videos to that, where they take a song that maybe doesn't have that much guitar or like a top 40 song,
right? Or do like
they
a genre crossover sort of thing.
Yeah, and they kind of shred it up, guitar it up a little bit. So that video was my humble attempt at being one of those people. I mean,
it was, you know, fire.
I mean, my video editing and audio editing skills are definitely not up to par, but I'm working on it, and I'm
All a work in progress.
with given how little I know about it, I'm very pleased with the results. So I'm
There you do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is "Don't Start Now," Dua Lipa guitar cover by our very own in-house co-host Benjamin Weise. The dance moves are the best part. Oh, that was tasty.
So fire. So fire.
Thank you guys so much.
Dude, you make the same face as I do. You know, the whole the bed.
You know, that's like that's the funny thing about that is that, like, everyone and their mother mentions that whenever someone takes a picture of me playing or sees a video like that. And the funny thing is, I know I do it, but I can't control it.
You can't help it.
No.
Yeah,
You can't help it.
The best
You know,
excuse for that is you watch, Carlos Santana. He's like, if you don't make that face, it's not going to sound like that.
It's like I think about that. Like, I think it was Paul Gilbert who said something like, if you bend a string and don't make a face, it's kind of like eating food without tasting it. You know.
I like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
Right.
Thank you guys for that.
Yeah, such great stuff. So, last thing we'll listen to is a track that I've been working on for a quick assignment at Berkeley, and I'm terrible with coming up with names, so it's just called Dance Guitar right now. I'm trying to figure out what I want to call it. So Ben, as I was telling you earlier, it's a mix of a modern EDM track and shred guitar sort of thing. So it's just 808s, a Hammond B3, a couple synthesizers, and one guitar track. And that's it. You know, a lot of these assignments are just, here are some limitations, try to see what you come up with. So
Hell yeah.
this is what we got. Let's take a listen. Hopefully the audio doesn't crap out here. So that's what I do in my spare time.
Woohoo!
That was soulful. That was soulful.
Much appreciated. So we'll finish that one up this week. Alright, so that was some original music that we've all been working on. We heard some Tula Vera, we heard some sweet covers from Ben Weise, and we heard some original music by myself. Speaking of music, we're going to kind of transition and talk about bands for the remainder of this podcast episode. Being in a band, auditioning for a band, writing music together. You know, in my personal opinion, I feel like music is best when it's shared with other people, whether it's something they enjoy or not, or, you know, stuff that you're just exposed to on a daily basis. Listening to different kinds of music really helps, you know, not only keep you satisfied as an artist, but it also helps you grow and expand your tastes as well. And it's just the best. I mean, we're musicians for a reason, right? So, Ben, how do you want to kick this part off, man?
Well, you briefly mentioned kind of auditioning for bands or starting bands, and Margaret, you kind of touched upon how Tula Vera became Tula Vera earlier, and I always kind of find it fascinating talking to different members of bands or different bands as a whole, and just kind of figuring out how they got their start. And all of us are kind of in different bands. Like some of us are in several bands, and I'm just kind of curious. That stuff always kind of fascinated me. So I kind of felt like we could go off of that a little bit. You know, like, I mean, like Zach, I know you're in a few bands, so maybe you could tell us how that kind of started.
Yeah, sure. All right. So the four main projects that I'm in throughout the year are. Can I do this in alphabetical order? It's been one of those days where my brain's not working. It's not, but I'll go for it. So we have Those Amazing Decades, which is my event band. We have Triple Addiction, which is my original Southern rock band.
Oh, bands!
We have Joe Lesky, who's a singer-songwriter that I play guitar for and do session work with. And then we have my main cover band, Remember Yesterday, which is 80s to modern hard rock music. So the band that I've been in the longest is, I think, Remember Yesterday was the first one I joined. So it's funny. It's my old high school music teacher and then 3 other alumni from the high school, but all in different, they're all in different classes. It just was kind of one of those things where, he was in a band and they needed a bass player to fill in. So I played bass for them for like a year. And then we just weren't feeling the music that we were playing anymore. So the 2 of us left and started a new super group here in Middlesex. And we play, normally during the year we play 1 or 2 times a month, different bars. We do a ton of festival season is one of my favorite things. We do 4 or 5 festivals around here, which is really cool. So again, it's 80s to today hard rock and, classic rock. So Poison, Metallica, Paramore, Maroon 5, a little bit, all over the place, but all rock oriented, which is pretty cool. Those Amazing Decades, I joined, what year is it? 2020. So I joined them the beginning of last year. They're a event band that does a 70s set, an 80s set, and a 90s set, and we do like a whole party themed show, kind of like, what can I compare it to? I mean, like off Broadway, they have like those Beatles tribute shows, where they do like a chronological thing. So that's what we do.
And on Broadway.
We do a #1 radio hit from each year, spanning all the different genres and stuff. So it's everything from Rod Stewart and the Bee Gees to Guns N' Roses and Bon Jovi to Nirvana and Backstreet Boys. It is the dopest thing.
Rod Stewart was my first concert. It's so funny.
We could talk about that too.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want remind me of that. We'll talk concerts. So I played with them. My first gig with them was Mount Airy Casino. We played there twice last year. We did the opening of their new ballroom, and then we also played at New Year's Eve there. That was a party.
Whoa.
Holy shit. That was cool. And I'm probably going to cry a little bit talking about this next part, but we were headlining Starland Ballroom back in January, and that was the one day this year that it snowed, so that show kind of got... So,
no,
a little depressed there. Still haven't been rescheduled. A little salty about it. As an aside, I've had 3 Starland shows canceled this year already, so I'm a little mad about it. But you got to keep on going. Joe Lesky, the other project that I'm in, local singer-songwriter, pianist, composer, does a lot of musical theater stuff, and that's how I met him. We're not doing anything right now, but we put out a new album last year, Specific Ambiguity. I play all the guitar tracks on that. It's cool. It's kind of like a musical theater meets singer-songwriter meets blues rock sort of thing. So it has like... I hate comparing us to Queen because we're not Queen at all, but they're so sporadic and like silly, but still serious. And then the orchestration and the band it's a full rhythm section, guitar, bass, drums, piano, and then we have a 3-piece horn section. So it's pretty sweet, a little different. And then the main gig I have right now is I am the lead guitar and touring guitar player for Triple Addiction. We're a southern rock band based out of Central Jersey. The debut record dropped last September. The single that we released for is almost at 10,000 plays on Spotify, which is pretty cool. We play venues all throughout New Jersey and PA. We were supposed to do a weekend tour with Saving Abel in Virginia, but that got canceled due to COVID-19. Go figure. But we've opened up for Buckcherry, Saving Abel. I believe they opened for Chris Stapleton. Don't quote me on that, though. That was before I joined the band. But we play some pretty cool places. So that's what I do band-wise. Ben, what are you in? I know you have your other lovers in the company. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so aside from any kind of freelance gig work that I generally do with musical theater or jazz stuff, I'm in. I guess officially three. No, four. No, four, because I have the Other Lovers, which is an original kind of funk rock band, funk rock blues indie band, because everyone in the band has very sort of eclectic musical tastes.
Dude, genres are a bitch. That's why we're just like, we're a band,
Yeah,
we're a band.
that's how I like to think of it. It's like we're not. I mean, there's a lot of influence from all sides in there, but without kind of narrowing ourselves down into one thing. But it's like it's rock, I mean, it's very like, it's kind of guitar and vocal oriented rock, for the most part. Like if you were to generalize it. So that I have been in. Well, the Other Lovers started officially in November of 2018, and I was not a part of it at first. It was just originally. This is something we can also talk about if we ever get the Other Lovers on here. But yeah, it started off with just guitar, bass, drums, vocals, one guitar. My friend Richard, who is still in the band to this day. And it wasn't until about a month later that they added me to the band. That's actually a funny story which we can talk about.
Share it now.
Yeah. So my friend, so I had seen the band before. They played like I think they played about one or two shows before I joined, and they were playing a show in New Brunswick. Which, Margaret, you know what kind of show we're talking about.
Very much.
And the bass player, who is a great friend of mine, he had kind of been asking me, like, should I ask, like, he had kind of been asking me, like, should I ask them if you could like come jam with us or something, because I guess just because he, I don't know. Like I didn't ask him to, but I was just like, I mean, if they're okay with it, sure. But then the night of this show comes. It was on a Saturday night, and he calls me up. I was after I got off a shift of work, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, do you want to join the band like tonight for the show?" And I was like, "What? Like you're crazy? Like I don't know your guys' set list. Like I'll get killed. Like what are you talking about?" But so then I decided to do it, and so I sat in on a rehearsal, listened through the set. I was like, okay, I can do this. And then we played the show, and it went great. And then and then afterwards I went up to our vocalist, and I was like, so did I pass the test? I was like, am I did I pass the audition or something? And then
I was just gonna say that. Pass the audition.
Yeah, it's like, did I like yeah or nay? But then she was like, yeah, you did great. Like, yes, you're awesome. Like you're in. And so that's kind of how that started. And since then, I've contributed a good portion of songwriting and songwriting credits to the band. A good, like, we're actually in the studio now finishing up the debut album. By the time this is out, I would have already gone to the studio to finish it up. So hopefully that'll be out relatively soon.
Sure, man.
And but yeah, we've played all around New Jersey, Stone Pony, lots of New Brunswick shows, Rockwood Music Hall in New York. It's a lot of like local stuff, but also like New York, Pennsylvania area stuff. So that's one. I feel like I went on a bit long about that.
Okay.
And then I have the Ben Weise project, which is sort of my original jazz fusion project, jazz fusion project. I do a lot of my own original stuff for that. We played one show before they shut down everything because of coronavirus, which is, bad timing. But it's hoping to get that up and running afterwards, and then I'm also in a another New Brunswick band. I'm the lead guitarist for the band Wind Up Kid, which is run by my friend Joey Walsh. I played a couple.
I had no idea you were in that band until I looked at your Instagram, and I was like, wait, whoa, when did this happen?
Yeah. That's a fairly recent addition to my I guess to my band list. Band list. I played a couple shows with them toward the end of February, beginning of March, and they are kind of a I guess they're more punk rock, if anything. They're not really like it's not really
surf punk indie. Surf punk
indie. Yeah, that's good. It's not really a whole lot of show-offy, guitar shreddy type of music, which I'm cool with. Not every song has to have a blistering guitar solo.
Me too.
although it does help sometimes.
Absolutely.
So we're obviously hoping to get back up and running sooner rather than later with all that. And then the last thing is I've been in the process of starting up a sort of event band, wedding band type of situation with a bunch of friends and colleagues from Rutgers and some Philadelphia schools, and kind of around the general area. So we've been rehearsing and practicing and trying to do stuff for that. And again, obviously the whole situation that we're in has kind of thrown that off track, but we're all working hard and doing the best we can with all this. So I feel like, given the situation, everything is kind of making good progress.
Sure. Cool. So Margaret, tell us a little bit more about your band and kind of how you guys got started and what kind of things you do.
So, like I mentioned before, we all met at the School of Rock, but Ben kind of reminded me I should also mention I was not the original drummer. There was another guy who actually, Ben, he goes to Rutgers. Rutgers is so big you probably don't know him, but really nice dude. His name is Calvin. He also went to the School of Rock. So Calvin was in it for a year, and I had actually seen Tula Vera play. I was at their first show. I had played on bills with them as well, just for fundraisers and Battle of the Bands in high schools and all that stuff. So fast forward a year, and I had invited Claire and Dylan over to my house just to hang out. Dylan and I had just graduated high school. It was summer 2016. Pokemon Go had just come out. The world was good. Everything was right. Peachy keen. So just get that picture in your head. And both Claire and Dylan said to me, Calvin just left the band yesterday. Kind of sucks. We don't have a drummer. And this was July 12th, 2016. So he had just left the day before. And I was like, wait, hello? And they were like, oh my God, you can learn the songs. So they gave me their album, or their EP, and I learned all of it. And here we are today. So our music, it's a lot of different stuff. I would like to say it's Neo Zeppelinism done right, but there's a lot of influences in there. Whether they be from like 70s soul. I know myself, I'm getting really, really deep into 70s soul. Also a lot of Prince.
Fucking love town stuff. It's so good.
Yeah, it is the best stuff. And also there's, on the new record, there's like a really, really heavy Southern rock anthem with like a doom metal part in there, but then there's some more like floaty indie stuff. But I think that no matter like what genre we touch upon, one thing that I'm actually quite happy with and quite proud of, whether it's like an old bluesy rock influence, which is what we love, what we all grew up on, or like a Lennon McCartney pop, a Prince, shreddy solo, something a little bit more soulful, something more indie, something more punk. I think there's a little something for everyone, and I'm glad that we've been allowed to kind of just experiment with whatever we want. And while the four of us have such similar influences, they're also quite different. And I think that really shows through in the music, and certainly in the next record. I'm really happy to say that I don't think one song sounds like another, which I'm so happy with. I love those guys. I work with some of the best songwriters around. They're really great, and like they love the drum parts I write. Luckily, no one's telling me what to do. It's while Dylan and Claire write the melodies and the lyrics, sometimes they switch on and off. Sometimes it's Dylan wrote all the lyrics and the melody. Sometimes Claire wrote all the lyrics and all the melody, or it's changed. But they don't touch my drum parts, which I like. It's a collaborative effort. I feel, even though they are the main songwriters, I feel like it's a 25 25 25 25 effort. I'm not a backing band. No one's treating me like a backing band, and we're all just really, really good friends. That's awesome. Which is the most important part. I love them. We've all traveled together, slept in the same room, and been late night driving, early morning driving 500 miles, that whole thing. So I love them a lot. I really do. If my fantasy goal is to put a new face on like a Neo Zeppelin hard rock type of thing, instead of rock and roll looking one certain way that it has through a lot of music. We represent folks of color, queer individuals, women, and I think it's really nice to champion groups like that. And there are so many, like Junkanoo. Oh my God, Locals, Junkanoo. I think it's important to champion those kinds of groups, because they put a new face to whatever music they're playing. For sure.
That's what it's all about.
Well, Addiction was kind of the same way with me. I wasn't the original guitar player. Those guys have been playing. I mean, the for those of you who don't know, the rest of the band besides me are three triplets. All brothers.
Whoa.
So they've been playing together forever. Similar thing, they did the whole School of Rock thing, with a couple friends over in the Somerville, Hillsborough area. And then at the end of last year, I got a phone call from the drummer. We all went to college together at Meriden Valley, just saying like, hey, guys thinking about leaving. I know I hit you up before, but like, is this something you'd be interested in? I'm like, yeah, revisit the music. And then within 24 hours, I called him up. I'm like, hey, man, I learned the EP. When do you want to, jam on it? And he was like, you want to do this week? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to do this week. And from the first show onward, it was as if we were all just hanging out again at college, jamming together, and it was just such a natural, kind of thing, So I think
that's the best, when it just like flows and you're hanging out with your buddies. Absolutely. Most importantly.
For real.
So cool. Ben and I were talking on our previous episode about being a good hang. You anyone can play the parts that you write. Anyone can play the parts you record. Anyone can play the instrument to a level to get the job done. But if you're not the best person for the job in terms of being able to hang around with everyone else, you're just not going to get the gig. You got to be able to hang out with everyone. You guys got to,
can't be a meanie head.
It brings us to another point. Ben had a good point that he wanted to bring up. I'll let him talk about it a little bit. Socializing with other musicians and bands, if you want to touch on that, Ben.
Yeah, so that's so I think I don't think, I know, and I know you, and I'm sure you guys agree with this, that just when you're at a show, whether you're playing a show or just seeing a friend's band or something like that, just at in that environment, like I've realized over the years how important it is to just like be yourself and just like hang around like, you know, the musicians, and, you know, just kind of like get to know them like on a personal level, and just, you know, like Zach said, be a hang and not try to you know, and as Margaret said, don't be a meanie head. But like that whole, you know, it took me some time to kind of realize how important that is, and how sometimes more important it is that you're good to just be around than how good you shred or how good you play the drums. You know, more often than not, you know, those just being good to be around is what sometimes takes greater importance. Because, like, you know, I know that with the other lovers, like, they didn't have to choose, like, in my opinion, they didn't have to choose me. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of other guys who can shred and do all that crazy stuff than me. But, like, you know, I'd like to think I'm a half decent person to talk to, or just like
you're
like,
only
you know,
half decent. It's all good.
It's such an interesting dynamic, because especially if you wanna pursue this as a career, you need to balance these are my friends, or these are my best friends, with these are also my business partners. Mm-hmm. So even if you hate the mix idea that your bassist just suggested, oh, you hate it, but you gotta say it nicely. You know, no one's you can't hurt anyone's feelings, and it's all about the respect. And like, being friends is such an important thing, and it makes music better too.
Yeah,
definitely. You know, you hear all the stories of all the legacy bands where like every band member has their own tour bus because they're just sick of each other. Like, I get it. You ran out of all you ran out of all your money in the 70s and 80s blowing it on cocaine and stuff. But like, you know, you like don't like the people you play with anymore. Like, that just seems like it would be miserable to me. Like, sure, you know, you fill in for stuff, and, you know, the theater gigs, maybe you don't see, you know, the bassoon player ever again. But, you know, I tend to enjoy the gig more if everyone just at least makes an attempt to leave their ego aside and tries to network and build their community. The very first musical I did outside of college, or outside of high school while I was in college, we all went out the first night, and I knew no one. I was a whole 19, and everyone else was, you know, at least 21 through 30 or whatnot. So I was like the young one, never did a show outside of college, and they were all just so welcoming and so like, aww, dude, you sound great, the show's going well, you know, you add a lot to the show. And I was like, oh, that just makes me so happy now, you know. So it's all about that feeling, because when you also feel more comfortable in the situation, I feel like you can perform better at the show. The Triple Addiction show we did, it was my first show with them. It was my first time playing a show out of state in a long ass time. And we just went on stage, and they were like, all right, buddy, you got this. And I was like, damn straight we got this. And like, first show, barely till I flubbed, you know, where I flubbed. So I think that's part of the thing too, you know. You're around people that you enjoy making music with, enjoy being around, you know, the people in general. It definitely makes for a better experience. You know, those are the shows that you'll remember, and the bands that you'll remember playing with, you know, years down the road, I think.
Definitely.
Totally agreed.
Next thing we want to talk about, speaking of shows and playing live, Margaret, what is your favorite venue to play at, one? And two, what is a dream venue that you haven't played that you want to play?
I think my favorite venue that we've played was the Bowery Electric in New York City. Yes. We played there twice. One was a little over a year ago, back in March. Honestly, I forget the lineup, but there were some really fantastic people on there. And we played there back in November for Junkanoo's EP release, and the energy there was amazing. The venue itself is beautiful, and the sound was quite good. That is very important. The sound was good, and the overall atmosphere was really something special. And then there was a jazz band upstairs, so you could go check that out too if you're not digging the rock vibe. Oh man, a dream venue. You know, I'll take a slightly different route and say just playing out more like in the West Coast. So even if that's in some dude named Jeff's basement, I'm sure
basement, yeah.
I'm sure both of you would probably agree that that's like a dream venue to go out in, like California or Seattle and play your music all the way out there. So dream venue is places on the West Coast, specifically in Seattle. Really dying to get out there.
Jeff's basement in Seattle.
In Jeff's basement.
Yeah, Jeff, are you listening?
Jeff,
when this is all over, Jeff,
whoever
DM
you
me.
are.
There is fully some guy named Jeff in Seattle with a basement that he hosts shows in.
There's probably many Jeffs with basements.
Yeah, no, you're right. And they probably live with their buddies Mike, John, TJ, Tyler. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Josh, yeah, there you go. So, Jeff, you out there? DM me. I got a band.
All right, Ben, go for it. Same question to you.
All right, so my favorite venue, it's probably my favorite. It's a tie between two. The first of which is Stone Pony in Asbury Park, and the other is Rockwood Music Hall in New York. Stone Pony. The reason why Stone Pony is one of my favorites is because I grew up kind of down by the shore area, and so Asbury Park was always like right next door to me, and so I would go there and see shows like a lot, you know, because I had friends who were in bands and stuff, and so getting to play there for the first time last year was sort of like a realization of like, whoa, like this is the same stage that Bon Jovi and Springsteen and Derek Trucks and Buckethead and all these guys, they've all played on, and it's like now, like, you know, I mean, you know, now we're, you know, we're not at that level, but this is just like now we've been added to the list. And the same thing with Rockwood Music Hall. You know, that was so the first time we played there twice. The first time was stage 1, which was the kind of the smaller stage. And then we played stage 3, which is the bigger one. And neither of them were two particularly large crowds, but the people who were there kind of brought the venue to life. And it was, you know, just to play there in New York City, and, you know, to a small yet appreciative crowd, that was, you know, I would rather have done that than have like a packed crowd with people who are just like
oh no.
You know. And then as far as dream venues go, this is also cliche, but I'm just gonna have to go with my heart and say Madison Square Garden, because mostly because I saw I was a Led Zeppelin documentary years ago. I think it was 1977, the tour, where it was 74 or 77.
Are you referring to the song Remains the Same, the movie?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That
soundtrack.
I think that was oh my god, 1972 or 1973. I love Led Zeppelin. Oh my
1973.
God.
Yeah.
There you go.
So there's my answer to that.
Yeah. All right. So, favorite venue to play at. I think the place I've had the most fun playing was Bally's Casino in Atlantic City. I got to play there 3 times, filling in for my friend's band Audio Riot. We played the indoor casino twice, and we played the beach bar. and it was just something about playing on a big ass stage with like the full production and just thousands of people just walking in and out. It's just super
That's so cool.
you know. And in the beach bar, like playing on the beach, it's so cool, especially in Jersey. Love the Jersey Shore, and just being able to play for the people out there, like it's just a different vibe, you know, because when the band takes a break and then the DJ gets on, he's doing like these crazy ass remixes and the scratch, like, you know, a real DJ. So cool. Dream venue. Well, I would have played there hopefully about 3 times by now, but Starland Ballroom. I'm coming for you one way or another. I don't care what I got to do.
Watch out.
Just growing up as a kid, you know, that was a venue that I went to a lot of shows at. I just knew that that's where I wanted to play. 2,000 cap venue, just rock it. And it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen this year, it's going to happen next year. And
Watch out, world.
keep our hopes up, you know? All right, so to kind of wrap things up, I figured we could each take about 60 seconds or so and kind of explain either our personal or our band's approach to social media. Just whatever you want to say, 60 seconds or less, go for it, Ben.
Whew. Well, personally, my approach to social media is still sort of in the developing stages, because I've never really been much of a social media person. You know, I guess I've never been too keen on how to utilize it properly. But I guess the idea that I go for, and this is kind of the same thing that the other lovers and any of my other bands do for our social media platforms, is to try to establish maybe not a theme, but at least try to establish some consistency in the things you post, whether you're posting musical content or just regular photos, like hyping up a show or hyping up a upcoming single. It's a slippery slope, personally, just because I'm still fairly a noob at it. So it's you know, I'm sure down the line, you know, in the future, I will become more adept at how to utilize it. But that's the one thing that I try to do in both my personal my personal pages as well as the band's pages, is to try to establish some consistent content, whether it's musical content or otherwise.
Yeah. All right, Margaret, what about you?
So whether it's with my own at drum_Barbie account, or if it's the Tula Vera account, the biggest thing that I always keep in mind is being honest and true to yourself. I'll go into my account more specifically. I try to keep my playing, whether it's live or recording, or my drum videos, I try to keep it honest, and I want to stay true to who I am as a drummer. You know, one of the reasons I started doing this in the drum videos in my garage was because I wasn't really seeing a lot of what I wanted to see. So when I would, you know, look through all like the drum porn pages, it's like, and this is cool, I love it, but it's the same kind of guys doing, you know, chops 8,000 miles an hour over the latest Post Malone song, which is dope. Honestly, that's awesome. But I just wanted a little something more, and I wanted to approach it in a way that was comfortable for me, stuck true to my own taste. I'm a rock person. I love Latin music as well. So I think the general theme is just to be honest. You know, I'm not going to stress about learning, you know, X chop at 275 BPM to play over a pop song, because that's not what I want to do. That wouldn't be authentic. What's authentic to me is what I post, and I spend a lot of time thinking about it, preparing it, and I I always end up enjoying it. So just being honest is the best thing you can do.
Definitely. So starting end of 20, beginning of 2018, don't know what year it is, don't ask me. I started to kind of realize, with all the Berkeley stuff and whatnot, just I wasn't getting the numbers that I was looking for. And it's not like I'm looking for attention. I'm just trying to expand the network and try to get more exposure out there just to get more feedback, really. So I completely rebranded all my pages under one single tag. Username across the board is at Zach Seif Music for every platform. Keeps it consistent. And I started doing scheduled things, like Ben was saying. So like every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, or every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or whatever it is. So right now I post every day somewhere. On Facebook, I do a riff of the day every single day.
Yeah.
Back in March. On YouTube, we post an episode of the podcast every Friday. So you guys who are listening, make sure you check every Friday. We've got another episode up on my YouTube channel at Zach Seif Music. Eventually, we'll move over to a new channel once we start getting sponsored and can afford to put it other places. And on Facebook, I also do a live stream every Saturday, 7 p.m. It's always themed. I always have ridiculous outfits. We just had an 80s night. My goal was to break 150 viewers. We broke over 500 views.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I think it's up over like 700, 800. Record number of tips, record number of comments. It was the best show I've had in a while. And then on Instagram, it's every other day I post something. So there's a video every week, a photo every week. I post a lesson every Thursday. I call it my Insta lesson series. So it's a 1 minute long guitar lesson every week. And I find that being consistent also shows persistence and dedication. Social media isn't for everyone. Not every musician and band needs to post on it. But for the lack of playing out that I have right now, that all of us have, and the fact that I need to do it just to keep myself going and, stay inspired, I feel like it's definitely helping. Like I shot 20-something videos today because I had the day off that I can just use, throughout the next month or so to just, use as content. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's still the best way to get your music out there today. Traditional print media and stuff like that is just A, not affordable for most bands, and B, I can't name many people in their 20s that buy a newspaper to begin with where your ad would be. Your little ad this big that you paid $2,000 for could have been spent on studio time. That's how I kind of but so that's kind of my take on social media. Before we wrap up, I figured we could just kind of talk about words of wisdom for maybe musicians and bands that maybe aren't quite, where we are right now, or maybe on the same level, that are trying to get to that next level. We all have our own things that we're doing, whether it's, we hook up with the manager and we use that, or, we pay to have someone professionally mix or produce the record so that it kind of stands out sonically from something else. Margaret, what do you think are a couple, some important things to keep in mind for someone who maybe is just joining their first band, or they're trying to play their first couple shows, and how they can kind of get up to where they want to be? What's some advice you have for them?
So if it's a brand new band, I'll always say take every gig you can get. You won't be getting paid for quite some time. Maybe not even within the year, 2 years, but in order to establish yourself, especially locally, I'll talk tri-state area, especially establishing yourself in the tri-state area, being that band to call when, that big indie band comes into town and they're like, ooh, okay, we're going to be in a New York venue. Who's playing New York? Oh, this band brings people. So really in the beginning, taking every single show that you can get. Don't expect to be paid, but eventually you will. And even beyond that, like I said before, just being honest. People can sniff out the bullshit if you're fronting some, I don't know, cool rock star persona and you're not available to your fans, whether that's on social media or even just like face-to-face after show interactions. If you're not available for them, then why are they gonna support you and stick with you? Now, like on a Prince level, you know, that's entirely different. But when you're starting out, like having that connection is so important. That's how you get loyal people who will love you and follow you through the crazy journey.
For sure. We could do a whole episode on fan engagement.
Yeah.
For sure. What about you, Ben? What are some words of wisdom you have for younger musicians and those who are kind of, you know, here that want to get up to here?
Well, if you're a young musician and if you're either not in a band or maybe you've just started a band and you're trying to really kind of work your way up the ladder, I guess, up the musical ladder, if there is one. You know, I would say like, I mean, I don't like, I'm kind of reiterating some of the things that Margaret said, but definitely top priority is being honest with yourself and with your band and with any of your fans who might want to come see you. You know, don't try not to make yourself, you know, into some superficial bullshit, you know, whatever. Like, don't be, I don't know, like don't try not to be, you know, an imitation of something. You know, try to become, you know, try to envision something that you see for yourself, and then, you know, kind of, you know, if there's some, and going back to something that I think Margaret said earlier, is kind of seeing, okay, like, this is the music I like, but what, you know, but I don't hear enough of this, you know, but this band, you know, whatever the band is, we can kind of fill that void and like become, you know, if you're not seeing enough of what you want to see, you may as well go do it yourself.
Do it. Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's kind of how I approach the other lovers, because you know, because we're not just one thing, and we're not just some superficial rip off of another band, you know. We like, or we try not to be, at least. But you know, that's all you can do is try. But so that's kind of how I approach it. Just kind of being honest with yourself and being honest with your audience. And then more often than not, that honesty will be appreciated by whoever comes to see you, whether it's promoters or fans or something. And, you know, obviously there's more to it than that, but for someone just starting out, just that honesty and being honest with yourself and your music will take you much farther than you think.
For sure. I think that the best thing I can do, or, you know, give advice wise, you know, as a private lesson teacher, is if you're serious about it, you're putting the time to do it. Something I've run into quite a bit are, you know, yeah, let's go make a band, I'll do this, we'll do that, we'll practice this, we'll get music. You show up to rehearsal and the one guy's like, yeah, I didn't have any time to write. All right, fine, you know, next week, you know, we'll just kind of wrap it, you know. You go back next week, you know, I didn't really feel it this week, and it's just not worth your time. If you're serious about it, you got to put yourself in a room with other people who are going to be serious about it. You know, not every project is going to work out, and that's fine. I've had a couple projects where we all had, you know, class-level musicians, people who were way above me, and we never were able to get that first gig. You know, schedules just didn't line up, priorities just didn't line up, and that's fine. I still play with those guys all the time. But if you're going to be serious about it, let it be known. And the most important thing that you can kind of take away from that is people will notice if you are who you say you are. You know, Margaret made a really good point about being authentic. You know, if you're passionate about doing something, go and do it. And eventually it'll catch on. You'll meet the right people, and then you'll get up and going, you know, a lot sooner than you think you will be, you know. So to kind of wrap up today, to touch back on something that Ben had mentioned earlier, You have one sentence to describe the best concert you've ever been to that you weren't a part of. So something that you went to as a fan. I'll do my best to try to do this.
Ooh.
The most entertaining show I've been to was the Foo Fighters at Madison Square Garden because Dave Grohl did not stop running around and screaming for 2.5 hours straight. And
I love that man.
thing of my life.
Oh.
As a fanboy, my favorite concert was seeing Dream Theater, not once but twice, because
Ooh,
Tom Petrucci melts my
wow.
heart, you know. But yeah, Dave Grohl, just that man alone. That's all I gotta say. What about you, Ben?
Oh man. Oh, this is. I guess I could do like a couple things. So, I'd say the concert that holds a place in my heart is the first one I ever went to, which was Tower of Power at.
What?
Yeah. I saw Tower of Power when I was 10 years old. That was the very first like actual concert that I saw.
No kidding.
And it was, yeah, it was something else. That was just that holds a special place in my heart.
One of the first drum grooves I ever learned was "What Is Hip." Actually,
they played that song. I love that fucking song. Could do an entire episode about just talking about that too. Let's see. It's another one. Another one that holds a special place is the first time I saw Joe Satriani, which was at the Count Basie Theater in 2016.
wow.
that holds the place for the loudest concert I've ever been to. I did not bring earplugs to that concert. And I was there with my dad, and there was an intermission after Joe had taken this ripping Shredicus Maximus guitar solo, and we were standing right next to each other, and we were just yelling at each other because our ears were ringing, and we could not hear each other right next to each other, and I think my ears were ringing for a good 4 or 5 days afterwards, but I would 100% do that again.
Whoa.
What about you, Margaret?
I'll say my sentence is seeing Paul McCartney for the second time. That'll be my sentence. That was at MetLife Stadium, and you know what? I wouldn't even say it was like the most showmanship crazy concert. That I will say was Aerosmith in Atlantic City quite a few years back. That was killer. That was really killer. But actually I got a book of Linda McCartney's photography to show you how dedicated of a fan I am. But I think like a lot of rock musicians, I'm not unlike anyone else in that the Beatles were like what started it for me. But I will say Paul is going to be turning I think either 78. No, I think he's going to be turning 79 in June actually. So that would have made him like 75 or 76 by the time I saw him. I swear to God, they pumped this man with IVs backstage because he's just going and going and going and going and going. And it's not like he's like, like, oh, let me drink my water. Okay. But he's going and going and going, and he's going from bass, and then he goes to piano, and then he's playing guitar, he's on ukulele. It's just unreal what he is doing at 76 years old. That's insane. And how he could sell out any venue he wants. And he doesn't even have to be doing it anymore. I would like to think that it comes from a good place in his heart that he continues to do it.
Absolutely.
And he is the most nice, sweet man ever. I actually have an autograph from him. My dad met him because my dad works at a hospital, and he was visiting someone there many years ago.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can say the same. My very first concert, and actually the last concert that I went to, the Eagles. I've got to see 3 times.
I was debating in my head whether I should say the Eagles, because for me it's Paul McCartney, Aerosmith, Eagles. I'm sorry I totally interrupted you. I just want to say I went into it, I was like, I like the Eagles. This is gonna be cool. This is gonna be fine. And then I was just blown away by how good they were. Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, speaking of old dudes who still bring it. So the first time I saw them was 2000 and oh my god, what the hell year?
Wait, did you see them at Madison Square Garden?
It was Madison Square Garden in
Yeah, we went to the same concert.
2005, 2006?
Oh, never mind. That was before. No, never mind.
Long Road Out of Eden had come out, and this was the tour that they were doing for that. It was my first concert. I was in 5th or 6th grade-ish, somewhere around there. And my grandmother had gotten tickets. She called my mom, and she was like, the kids need some culture. Let's go see the Eagles. And so I was like, oh, I know, like, Boys
That's a cool grandma.
and I know Hotel California, you know. Yeah. So we get there, and it was like Hell Freezes. They played Hotel California the same way they did on Hell Freezes Over, but then broke into the electric guitar solo. We stayed for the first half, and I was like, whoa, I want to do that. Because I had been playing guitar at that point for... Oh, I don't even know if I'd been playing guitar yet. Maybe like a month or so. I saw that, and I was like, holy shit. I saw them again the year after Glenn Frey had passed away, and they were doing the memorial tour.
Oh, my God.
In Philly at Citizens Bank Ballpark. I took my mother. James Taylor opened. And
Taylor opened?
Oh, yeah.
What?
It was just like the feel-good show of the summer. This was the last weekend in July. It was 2017, I think, because I think Fry had passed in 15 or 16, and I was just like, we gotta go, because what if they never tour again? Well, come mid 2018 and they announce, or mid 2019 they announce another tour. I took my grandfather to see them this past year at Madison Square Garden in 2020, and it was the Hotel California anniversary, so they did that from beginning to end, and then they did a greatest hits set, and let me tell you, Joe Walsh could do a stand-up, and I would pay money to see that. Because the band would walk off, to, drink water or take their coffee or whatever. And he'd come out and be like, so you guys know. And go on like a tangent. And then they'd play a Joe Walsh song. And the whole time he's just like he's just in his own little world, and it's adorable. But yeah, the Eagles
that's so funny. We were actually making a joke recently, because Dylan and Claire have like solo and side bands, and we were like, we just said this last week, like, oh, we could be like the Eagles, maybe we'll do a little Dylan's band here when we're on our 50-year anniversary tour. We're all old and crusty, and then we'll do a little Claire's music, and then we'll do mostly Tula Vera, be a little Don Henley, Joe Walsh type situation going on.
I can do that for sure. I just looked up the dates, and I believe the tour, it was definitely the Long Road Out of Eden tour. The problem, though, is that it went from 2008 through 2011, and I don't remember which day I went to, but it's probably May of 2008 was the first time I saw them. That sounds about right. They hit about $5 million in the box office for that 3-night run.
Jesus.
What?
I mean, I've had some pretty good shows. I've never had $5 million worth of shows, but that's something to work towards.
Save up for that.
Jeez. All right.
It's a rock star dad status.
Absolutely. Before we head out, do you have any questions for us, the co-hosts of the BZ Music Podcast?
Oh, man. What inspired this? Friendship, boredom, both?
I guess I get friendship for one, and then
boredom's a close second.
And then
I'm pretty sure, Ben, you reached out to me and you were like, "Hey man, do you want to hang out over Zoom this week?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, that sounds great." Because everyone started getting Zoom for school. I've already had it for 3 years, in case anyone was wondering. Just want to hang out, and I was like, yeah. And I listen to Rhett Shull's podcast, The Backstage Journal, religiously when it comes out. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. He interviews everything from the guys in the Black Keys to record producers and stuff like that. But he's at the level where I want to be right now, you know, touring around. So long story short, I was listening to it and I was like, you want to like record it and just make it a podcast episode and see if anyone gives a shit about it. And absolutely, I've kind of wanted to do a podcast for a while, you know. I have too. Exactly, and it just kind of worked. And then we put out the first episode, and our other friend Ben was like, "Yo, let me get on an episode. I'm gonna invite myself in next week." And
I went to high school with him. He was a year younger than me.
That's awesome. So he just kind of invited himself, and I was like,
"That sounds like him."
I love that because the three of us, we just always, you know, big swap with musicals and stuff. So I was like, screw it, let's have a guest. And then it went really well. So I messaged you and I'm like, dude, let's just have a guest every week because this is what at least I like, you know, is just having different perspectives come on, because not only is it going to help grow the podcast, make sure you guys smash that like button, smash that subscribe button every single fucking week.
We can get 1 trillion likes.
For real. You know, like I said before, with music, it's best when it's shared with everyone else. So having all these different perspectives come in is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how this got started. You know, two dudes,
that's awesome.
guitar players. We're not really good at anything except playing guitar and making content. So let's do a podcast.
just
Margaret,
two guys being.
Everyone, thank you so much for being on this podcast. This was a blast.
Oh my god, it was a blast. You guys are awesome.
Not the procrastination, the setback from last week when we were trying to record just made it like we got on and we were like, we're gonna shoot a podcast. Let's just do it, you know.
And we did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. To everyone listening in at home, thank you so much for joining in for another episode of the BZ Music Podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Seif.
And I'm Ben Weise. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a fun time.
Absolutely. Everyone,
yes, it has.
take care, and we will see you next time.